Okay, let's talk about a few more things that have to do with developing, maintaining, managing our self-concept. So the spotlight effect refers to the idea that that we assume that people have their attention focused on us. So I didn't mean for Barry Manilow's face to get so big so soon. Apparently my animation's off. But so what they did in this study that I wanted to describe is they had people, let me go like that. Okay, put on t-shirts. These were Cornell University students who in the 1980s, 90s, they were asked to put on t-shirts with the face of Barry Manilow on it. Barry Manilow was not considered cool in the 90s. I think by the 00s there started to be some Fanilows that were really following him, but he had really fallen out of favor, and definitely college students were not interested in Barry Manilow at that time. He was from the 70s. He sang things like Mandy, and you'll probably know this one, at the Copacabana, that one. Anyway, he was very hot in the 70s and was very out by the time they did this study. So they had these students put on Barry Manilow t-shirts, and then they asked them, how likely do you think it is that people in your class are going to notice that you're wearing this Barry Manilow t-shirt? So on the left-hand column, you see the people who are wearing the t-shirts, prediction of what percent of the class was going to notice that they were wearing a Barry Manilow t-shirt. I apologize for the hooting. That is my Audubon Society clock. So you hear different birds, and that means I've been talking for an hour. So that was my hooting owl. So in the left-hand column is the prediction of the wearer. And so the wearers thought about 45% of the class would notice that they were wearing a Barry Manilow t-shirt. In actuality, the black bar shows you that a little bit more than 20% of the class noticed that anyone was wearing a Barry Manilow t-shirt. They had some control estimates also, which was people who were not the wearer and were not members of the class, but were other college students who predicted how many people would notice that it was a Barry Manilow t-shirt. And the control 2 was estimating how many people would know that who Barry Manilow was, basically. So basically the controls and the actual observations were very similar. The wearers of the t-shirts really overestimated the likelihood that people would notice that they were wearing this, goofy t-shirt. The thing that's really important about the spotlight effect is that it describes those situations we've all been in where maybe we got something on our clothes, or we feel like we're having a really bad hair day, or something right about our appearance. Maybe you're wearing a cast, or something like that. They've even just demonstrated the spotlight effect among people of color when topics related to their race are being covered in class. They overestimate the likelihood that other people are noticing them because they feel like the spotlight gets turned on them. Women in a group of men will report the spotlight effect. They'll feel like the men are noticing them more than they really are. Things like that, and vice versa. Men feel like women will notice them more than they really are. So basically, the overarching concept here is that we think other people are more interested in us than they really are. One big lesson to learn about the concept of self is that we all are more absorbed in our own self, our appearance, our presentation, our own self-esteem than we are in anything else that other people are doing in general. And so this overestimation that they saw with the Barry Manilow t-shirt has been manifested across a lot of different studies in the last 20 years, showing that people think that other people are much more interested in them and their behavior and their appearance and their style of speech and other things than they really are. All right, how about the illusion of transparency? This is when we assume that other people can recognize our inner states. Like if we're upset or disgusted or angry, we think other people will be able to recognize that we're experiencing those inner states more than they really can. So in this study, they had they used what's called a yoked participant design. So they had an actual participant and then a sort of a control that was yoked to them. And so this was supposed to be kind of a lying scenario where the person who's tasting the drinks, there was an array of 10 drinks. I happened to have found this Starbucks demonstration and I rubbed out this was not sponsored by Starbucks. They just gave them an array of 10 cups in front of them, and the actual participant was supposed to take a sip of each of the cups. One of the cups would contain something that tasted horrible, and the rest were all fine. And the job of the participant was to not let on that this was the horrible tasting beverage. The control was let in on which one was the disgusting beverage by a tap on their shoulder by the experimenter, because this whole thing was being video recorded and then shown to objective observers later. So they needed to not, yell out, "That's the bad tasting one," for the control's benefit. They needed to do something that the camera wouldn't pick up. So they came up behind the control and tapped that yoked control participant on the shoulder just as the actual participant was taking a drink. So the control knew which one was the bad drink. All right. So the taster made a prediction that people would be able to recognize from the taster's facial expression that was the disgusting drink. So they thought, almost everyone would be able to recognize that this was the disgusting one, that I wouldn't be able to mask it. And the yoked control thought, maybe the taster had done a little bit better job from the yoked control's perspective, but also thought that, a lot of people would be able to detect that was the bad tasting one. In reality, the actual accuracy was at the chance level. So the observers weren't able to tell from the taster's facial expressions whether he was drinking the good or the bad tasting beverage. It's interesting, isn't it, that the taster thought his face would give it away or her face would give it away, right? That it would be super obvious to the observer, and it's not. And I notice with raising my son in particular that he thinks that his facial expression will convey all sorts of meaning to me, and he shouldn't have to utter it in words, whatever he's upset about or whatever. And I've had to tell him, your blank face is not really helping me in this situation. I don't know what you're trying to convey to me. He feels like it's so obvious to me. Like I should be able to tell just by his posture or something how he's feeling. And I think a lot of us carry that around with us, that, other people will know that we're upset or angry or nauseated or sad or whatever we're experiencing. And then we think that other people are being insensitive to us because they aren't reacting to what we're trying to convey. But the truth of the matter is we are not transparent. People need a little bit of help in understanding what our internal states really are. So that illusion of transparency, the idea that we're being misunderstood, we think, by the people around us, that feeds into our self-concept that maybe we feel like other people don't care about us or other people just don't get us or whatever it is, when in fact it might just be a function of we need to say it out loud in words, that the other person really just doesn't know what we're experiencing because they can't see inside of our heads. All right, self-awareness. Now this is an old video, but I picked it because it's brief and hits the point. So please enjoy this little short video showing us about the development of self-awareness. It's very brief and hits all the key points. So I will see you on the other side of this video.